Welcome to this edition of Literary Reviews. My name is Phineas Smith. Today we will be talking about the novel Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Brontë in 1847. The book begins with the bleak childhood of the orphaned protagonist, Jane, unwelcomed at Gateshead Hall with her cruel Aunt Reed and cousins. Subjected to emotional abuse and isolation, Jane is eventually sent to Lowood Institution, a charity school run under harsh, puritanical principles. Life there is defined by privation, cold, and a typhoid outbreak, but it proves formative. Jane finds her first friend in Helen Burns, whose quiet Christian endurance deeply influences her, and receives a foundational education.
Girls, I am sad to announce that Helen has succumbed to consumption. If the county inspector comes, you all must think of the school. No one here is ever told to stand in the cold rain as punishment. None of you girls is ever hungry or humiliated by me or the staff. If I hear that any evil rapscallion has said otherwise, you will all receive half portions at dinner for a month.
After Helen's tragic death, which leads to improved conditions, Jane spends 8 years at Lowood, 6 as a student and 2 as a teacher, before yearning for a new, independent life beyond the school's confines. At 19, Jane accepts a position as governess at Thornfield Hall.
Jeezy Louisey. This must be how Julie Andrews' character felt.
She is to tutor the young French girl, Adèle Varens. The atmosphere of the isolated manor is immediately intriguing, tinged with a subtle, unnerving mystery. Jane soon encounters her employer, Mr. Edward Fairfax Rochester, a brooding, passionate man considerably older than herself, in a dramatic roadside accident.
Miss Eyre, you make quite a first impression. Did you know that horses are less likely to buck when there is no woman standing in the middle of the road on a foggy evening? I'm sure my leg will heal. Prepare yourself to meet Adèle in the morning. She will be no bother. You may go now, Jane.
He often treats her abruptly, yet their conversations are intellectually stimulating, revealing a shared depth of character. Jane is captivated by his raw intensity, while Rochester seems to appreciate Jane's sharp wit and moral integrity, contrasting her with superficial society women like Blanche Ingram, a woman which Rochester saw frequently in the past. The relationship develops despite the strange sounds and disturbances Jane attributes to an eccentric servant named Grace Poole. The eerie incidents at Thornfield, including a mysterious fire that Jane extinguishes and a nocturnal attack on a guest, fail to halt the growing emotional connection between the pair. After briefly misleading Jane into believing he will marry Miss Ingram, Rochester confesses his profound love for Jane in the Thornfield orchard.
Yes, Rochester, I will marry you. Somewhere in my youthful, miserable past, I must have done something good.
Jane, overjoyed to have finally found the belonging she craved, accepts his proposal. However, their wedding day ends in disaster. Just as the vows are to be sealed, a solicitor and Jane's uncle intervene, revealing that Mr. Rochester is already married. Rochester is forced to admit the truth. His wife, Bertha Mason, is alive, afflicted by violent hereditary insanity, and kept locked in a secret room on the 3rd floor of one of the turrets, the true source of the disturbances. Devastated by Rochester's deception and refusing to live as his mistress, Jane flees Thornfield in the dark, penniless and without a plan. She travels until near starvation, eventually collapsing near Moor House, where she is rescued by the austere clergyman St. John Rivers. Jane is nursed back to health and finds employment as a schoolmistress. In an extraordinary turn, St. John, while investigating Jane's true identity, discovers they are cousins, and that Jane is the sole heir to a large inheritance. St. John, driven solely by religious duty, proposes to Jane, believing her suitable as a missionary's wife for his impending work abroad. Now I have some bloody AI slop on my trousers. Jane respects his piety, but refuses to marry without genuine love. As she wrestles with this moral dilemma, she experiences a mystical event. She distinctly hears Rochester's voice crying out her name in the wind. Convinced he is in danger, she returns to Thornfield only to find it a ruin, destroyed by a fire set by Bertha. Bertha died leaping from the roof, and Rochester, attempting to save her, was blinded and lost a hand. Jane travels to Ferndean, the remote manor where he now lives, humbled and alone. She returns to him freely, and they marry. The epilogue notes that Rochester eventually regains partial sight, and they live in deep mutual contentment, having achieved a relationship based on true equality. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Literary Reviews.